My hit songs were not my best efforts. My best efforts appeared on albums which the public never heard, because what happened was that MGM was a singles-oriented label. And so they didn't want any of my albums to interfere with the airplay of the singles, which earned them at the time the most money. So that some of the best things that I've recorded and things I'm really proud of, the public has never heard. Some of the songs that I really feel are kind of corny, but if the public loved them, that's wonderful. And they were for the time they were great. But when I hear them now, I want to say, come on, I wish they would have remembered something else, that I recorded. That's one point I want to make.
Okay.
And then the other you were just saying is that I'd like to talk about some of the songs I turned down, which is very funny.
I think that would be wonderful.
Okay.
I found it somewhat unusual in the late 50s and particularly in the early 60s that a company did release so many LPs on an artist who was a hit singles artist.
I would record 5 albums at one time in London.
Yes, lots of people in the 50s had single hits one after the other and maybe didn't even have an album.
That's right.
And you had albums at a greater rate than maybe any of the other pop stars at the time.
Very, very true. I had a contract that just I could record as much as I wanted, and there wasn't any recoupment for session costs or anything like that. So whatever really I wanted to do album-wise, I just did. And even though I felt that some of them weren't promoted properly, none of them really were promoted properly. The only way they ever got attention is if I did a song from an album on the Perry Como show, on the especially the Ed Sullivan show, because I appeared on that show more than any other show. And that was a way, for instance, to introduce something that was never a single by me, but would become a famous song overnight because it was on an album.
And millions of people heard it all at once.
Millions of people, and you can't do that today. There's no outlet like that today.
The first album that became a very, very, very big LP for you was Italian Favorites, and I think that was one that came to the attention of the people because of the song Mama.
That is absolutely true. Up until that particular time, which was in 1960,
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those albums, those 5 albums that I cut in about 10 days in England. And there was just a demarcation line in music, which was 1957. Almost everything prior to 1957, with the exception of a few things, Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock. But prior to that, and if you look at the top 25, if you look at the last 25 years, which I was doing the other day, the demarcation line was definitely 57. After that, the world of music belonged to the kids. They brought the 45s. They made the stars, and that was due largely to Elvis. And everything prior to that was considered kind of old hat. But I had been singing since the age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
I've been singing on television for 4 consecutive years. I never missed a week on a kiddie show when there was no rock and roll. And so that I was doing songs like St. Louis Woman at 11 years old on the with my bobby socks
and your accordion
on Ted Mack's Amateur Hour, St. Louis Woman, with her diamond rings and all that kind of stuff. And so I was, and also I remember the first time when I was 9, I was doing 4 shows a day at the Steel Pier in Atlantic City on a kiddie show, and my father said, "Here, sing this song, it's a good song." I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a Spanish song. Sing it and you play it." It's called, and my father has this kind of quaint but elusive charm, Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like a taskmaster.
Oh, I know.
And I looked at it and it says, it's Si Bonet. He said, "Just write down here's the record." He said, "Now write down what you hear, don't write down what you see on the music." So that's the way I began to sing foreign songs other than Italian, which I'd always sung. My grandma had taught me songs in Italian when I was 2 and 3.
Was Italian spoken in their home as you were growing up?
Only Italian, except my parents. They didn't speak. They spoke like a real bad Italian, real bad. But my grandparents, naturally, they spoke only Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So Grandma would teach me the Italian songs, and then of course I took Spanish throughout high school and 6 months into college. So it wasn't like new to me. But at the age of 9, my father had me singing La Vie en Rose in French and Si Bonnet in Spanish on the steel pier with my accordion. So all of those things, and he was always a fanatic country fan. When he used to put Paul Brenner on the radio on Sunday afternoon to hear that country, that Ozark, real hillbilly Ozark stuff, I used to get a headache. I used to say, Daddy, he said, go ahead, laugh all you want, but Sunday country music is going to be as popular as the stuff you're listening on the radio to right now, the stuff you're listening to.
And then in 1962 came country music, Connie style.
Right. He had been telling me from 58 to go down to Nashville to record, and I was one of the first pop artists to go down there to record.
You and Patti Page were the first two.
That's right, because when I went down there, I mean, I was amazed, no arrangements, everything. I couldn't believe that strings could play together a song that there was no arrangement on, and singers could sing a song there was no arrangement on, because everything that I can't ever learn a song by listening to it. I can listen to a song 100 times, and I can't learn it. I have to look at the music and see the words, and it has to click in my head, and then I'll know it. So, but I couldn't believe that in Nashville, how incredible they were, and each person in the orchestra was a talent unto himself. There was Boots Randolph, on tenor sax, and there was Floyd Kramer on piano, and Grady Hurst on guitar. Every one of them was a star to me, at least, and really in the country market unto themselves.
And even the Jordanaires in the background.
And the Jordanaires in the background. So actually, I had a great foundation. And one of the reasons I feel that I have sold so many they say 80 or 90 million, but they're not counting all the bootleg records, which is about 3 times as much as the legitimate records that are sold across the world outside the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to recordings, we're really talking about 300 million records. And why did that happen? It happened because I was singing Italian as a kid, and so for the first time when my father said, cut an Italian album when you go to England, and a Jewish album, and a Spanish album, he used to dump these monstrous projects in my lap like he just said it, and that was it. But I would do it, because he was always right. And he was like the Perry Cohen, not Perry Cohen, but the Mitch Miller show, and the Lawrence Welk show. And these shows were his favorite shows, but they were the rest of all America's favorite shows. So he had kind of a pulse on what people would want to hear.
It also seems that he pushed you in the direction of appealing more to the adults, too.
That's right. He said to me, what do you want to do, work Alan Freed's Brooklyn Paramount forever?
Mm-hmm.
And so prior to that Perry Como show with Mama, everybody considered me a rock and roller. Even though Who's Sorry Now wasn't a rock and roll song, I was considered a rock and roller with Stupid Cupid, Lipstick on Your Tongue. I was a rock and roller. So the adults didn't pay me any mind. Not true in foreign countries. In foreign countries with Who's Sorry Now, like it was #1 for 8 weeks in England. I was an adult star in England before I was in America. They didn't take me seriously until that night on the Perry Como show. And I remember that was a Wednesday night, and I had a concert at Carnegie Hall on Sunday, and 200 seats had been sold. Within 24 hours of the Perry Como show, they were scalping tickets to get into that show at Carnegie Hall. And it was like the turning point of my career, because automatically the distributors, called for a single on Mama, and then it became such an international hit. And I consider myself very lucky because, and as I was leaving for England, my father said, "Hey, Connie, I forgot to tell you, don't forget, include Mama on that Italian song, on that Italian album." I said, "Okay."